Hello everyone, let's enjoy this very happy beaver before we learn about osmoregulation. So, let's talk about this word, osmoregulation. Osmo meaning water and regulation meaning to regulate. So osmoregulation is the regulation of water in your body. So although we've been learning about these different parts of the kidney and it seems like we're doing osmoregulation already, in fact we aren't, because all the other parts are predictable. They just act the same way every single time. It doesn't matter if you are dehydrated or if you've got way too much water in your body. The same thing just happens. It's only in the collecting duct, really, where you actually can modify the concentration and volume of the urine produced. So these are the questions that we're going to be answering. What part of your body monitors blood water levels? What hormone is responsible for osmoregulation? And what can cause your blood water potential to drop? And how does your urine differ when you are dehydrated compared to hydrated? So this last one is probably the easiest one to answer, right? So we know that when we are dehydrated, we produce a lower volume and a higher concentration of urine, whereas when we are hydrated, we produce a higher volume, lower concentration of urine. So what part of your body monitors blood water level? Well, we know this is going to be a part of your brain, and it is your hypothalamus. So let's take a little look at the hypothalamus here. So we can see that this is our brain with our cerebrum, and then here, just this tiny little bit here, in the very center of our brain is our hypothalamus, and then we can see that the hypothalamus is closely connected to the pituitary gland. So the hypothalamus monitors an awful lot of things in our body, and it also produces a lot of hormones and neurotransmitters. These hormones and neurotransmitters are usually then transported to the pituitary gland, where they're stored and then released based on messages from the hypothalamus. So, the level of water in the blood is monitored by osmoreceptors. So that's a key term here, osmoreceptors. That just means water receptors, okay, in the hypothalamus. And then the hormone, which is responsible for osmoregulation, is called ADH. ADH stands for antidiuretic hormone, and it's one of the smallest hormones that we have. It's a really tiny polypeptide made up of only 9 amino acids. So it is made in the hypothalamus, but it travels along nerve cells to the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland, so basically to the back of the pituitary gland. And then ADH is released from the pituitary gland into the bloodstream when it's stimulated. And when is it stimulated? It's stimulated when your blood water level is low, when your blood volume is low. Antidiuretic hormone causes an increase in the reabsorption of water at the collecting duct, and therefore we release ADH when osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus detect a low blood volume. So when we are dehydrated, ADH causes us to reabsorb more water into our bloodstream and causes us to lose less water in our urine. So let's talk through the process of how it works. So the ADH is made in the hypothalamus, travels along the nerve cells, gets to the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland, and then it is released from the pituitary gland into the bloodstream when it's stimulated by the osmoreceptors. And it travels through the bloodstream to its target organ, which are the walls of the collecting ducts and the nephrons in the kidneys. And it causes them to adjust their permeability to water. It causes them to increase their permeability to water. Well, how does it do that? Well, the binding of the ADH to the receptor protein in the plasma membrane of the cells in the wall of the collecting duct activates a series of enzyme-controlled reactions. So there is a cascade reaction within the cell that produces an enzyme called active phosphorylase enzyme. Also present within the cell are vesicles, which contain aquaporins. Aquaporins are permeable channels that allow water through. So, the active phosphorylase enzyme causes the vesicles containing aquaporins to move towards and bind with the cell surface membrane. The membrane is now more permeable to water molecules, and so more water molecules will enter the cells of the walls of the collecting duct, and then more water molecules will leave those cells and enter the capillary and be taken away, therefore increasing the permeability of the cells of the walls of the collecting duct and increasing the reabsorption of water from the kidneys. The half-life of ADH is about 20 minutes. So after 20 minutes, that ADH will be broken down and therefore will stop having its effect. That means that the aquaporins that were put into the cell membrane will now leave the cell membrane and be taken back into the vesicles and can be recycled and reused later on. And that's it. That's how we osmoregulate in the collecting duct, by releasing more or less ADH from the pituitary gland, more or less of that ADH binding onto receptors to ADH on the cell surface membrane of the collecting duct cells, and then the binding of those ADH molecules causing a series of enzyme-controlled reactions that produces the active phosphorylase enzyme, which triggers the vesicles containing the aquaporins to bind with and fuse with the cell membrane, increasing the permeability of these cells to water. All right, and that's pretty much everything that you need to know about osmoregulation in the kidney. So well done for listening. I would really recommend drawing this out, going through the process, understanding what's being released, where it's being released from, what its target organ is, what enzyme it activates, what an aquaporin is, and the effect of those aquaporins. But that's it for today. I'll speak to you soon. Well done.